Don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming family stories and share your own experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the people closest to us remain mysteries until life strips away the comfortable facades we've built around our relationships. My sister Elena's husband Marcus had always struck me as dependable but unremarkable. Through 15 years of family gatherings, I'd categorized him as the reliable type, steady income, reliable car maintenance, the kind of man who brought the same bottle of wine to every dinner party. He possessed an understated presence that complemented Elena's effervescent personality perfectly. While she painted rooms in bold colors and rearranged furniture on whims, Marcus quietly fixed the squeaky hinges and replaced burnt-out light bulbs. Our interactions followed a predictable pattern of cordial small talk during holidays and birthday celebrations. We discussed weather, local sports teams, and home improvement projects with the comfortable distance that characterizes many in-law relationships. I respected his devotion to my sister and appreciated his steady presence in her life, but genuine closeness had never developed between us. He seemed more comfortable discussing tire rotations than personal feelings, more inclined to troubleshoot mechanical problems than navigate emotional conversations. That perception changed completely during a long weekend at the old mountain retreat. The rustic cabin had been in Elena's and my family for generations, nestled among towering evergreens beside a pristine alpine lake. Weather and time had taken their toll on the structure, and each year the maintenance challenges grew more daunting. This particular spring, we'd committed to addressing the most pressing issue: replacing the deteriorating porch that wrapped around the cabin's front facade. Elena had orchestrated the family work weekend with her characteristic enthusiasm. The plan included Marcus, myself, and whoever among our children could spare the time. As circumstances unfolded, only Elena's son Jake managed to join us, making it a foursome heading into the mountains for what promised to be equal parts hard labor and family bonding. The journey up the winding mountain roads followed our typical dynamics. Elena maintained a steady stream of conversation while Marcus navigated the serpentine curves with quiet concentration. Jake occupied himself with music through earbuds in the back seat while I watched the familiar landscape unfold outside my window. Pine-scented air grew cooler as we gained elevation, and the anticipation of physical work ahead created a low hum of nervous energy in the vehicle. We arrived as afternoon shadows lengthened across the cabin grounds. While Elena and Jake began opening windows and airing out the musty interior, Marcus immediately gravitated toward inspecting the problematic porch. I followed, partly from curiosity and partly from a sense that someone should witness the extent of the damage. The wooden structure's condition exceeded our worst fears. Support beams sagged ominously, railings shifted under minimal pressure, and several floorboards had rotted completely through. Marcus crouched down, testing various points with careful pressure, his expression growing increasingly grave. "This is more complicated than we anticipated, Rebecca," he said, his voice carrying an unfamiliar note of uncertainty. He pressed against a particularly compromised section, watching the wood crumble under his touch. "The foundation itself may be unstable. This project could require significantly more time than we've allocated." Something in his tone caught my attention, a vulnerability I'd never detected before. Usually, Marcus approached problems with straightforward confidence, methodically working through solutions. This hesitation revealed a different side of him, and I found myself really looking at him perhaps for the first time. The next morning dawned with deceptive beauty. Crystalline air carried the scent of pine and lake water while birds provided a cheerful soundtrack to what would become a day of backbreaking labor. Marcus had risen early, sketching rough plans on notebook paper while coffee brewed. His methodical approach impressed Jake, who eagerly volunteered as an apprentice for the demolition and reconstruction process. Work began systematically. Marcus guided Jake through proper techniques for removing damaged boards while preserving salvageable materials. Elena organized supplies and managed refreshments while I ferried tools and cleared debris. The physical demands quickly intensified as the morning sun climbed higher, but our progress felt satisfying. Then disaster struck with terrifying swiftness. Marcus had positioned himself beneath the porch structure, assessing the condition of a critical support beam, when the temporary brace they'd installed shifted without warning. The sound of splintering wood preceded Marcus's sharp cry of pain, followed by an ominous silence that froze my blood. Elena's terrified shout from the cabin doorway pierced the air as she rushed toward the collapsed section. I reached the edge, first, peering into the shadowed space where Marcus lay motionless, trapped beneath a massive wooden beam across his lower legs. His face was pale and contorted with pain, eyes closed, breathing shallow. "Marcus, can you hear me?" I called, my voice trembling despite my efforts to remain calm. Elena arrived beside me, tears already streaming down her face, while Jake stood frozen in shock. After what felt like an eternity, Marcus's eyes opened, focusing with visible effort. "I'm conscious," he managed, his voice tight with pain. "Just trapped, Elena. Don't panic, sweetheart. We can handle this." But his condition looked far from manageable. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool shade, and his breathing remained labored. My own panic threatened to overwhelm me until I saw Elena's distress and Jake's fear. Someone needed to take charge. "Jake, fetch the longest pry bar from the toolbox, along with that thick plank we set aside earlier," I instructed, forcing my voice to remain steady. "We need leverage to lift this beam." Jake snapped into action while Elena knelt beside Marcus, trying to comfort him through her tears. Marcus looked up at me, his usual reserve completely absent, replaced by raw vulnerability. "It hurts significantly, Elena," he admitted, his honesty striking me as completely unlike his usual stoicism. "My leg feels badly damaged." Working together, Jake and I positioned the plank as a fulcrum and applied the pry bar as leverage. The beam's weight tested every muscle we possessed, our combined strength barely sufficient for the task. Gradually, agonizingly slowly, we raised the beam just enough to create space. "Now, Marcus, slide out carefully but quickly," I urged. He gritted his teeth, perspiration streaming down his face, and somehow managed to pull himself free, dragging his injured leg behind him. He collapsed onto the dusty ground, gasping, his left leg clearly broken and already swelling at an unnatural angle. Elena immediately began discussing emergency services, but we all knew cell phone coverage in this remote location was virtually non-existent. Marcus looked up at me, pain evident in his eyes along with something else, gratitude and a small, incredibly brave smile. "Well, Rebecca," he said, his voice still rough with pain, "I suppose our renovation project just encountered a significant delay." In that moment, seeing him injured and vulnerable yet still trying to ease everyone else's anxiety with gentle humor, I experienced a complete shift in my perception. The polite distance that had characterized our relationship didn't just diminish, it evaporated entirely. Extracting Marcus from that location became an elaborate ordeal. The nearest medical facility lay more than an hour away, assuming we could even establish communication for guidance. Elena alternated between tears and frantic attempts to make Marcus comfortable, her usual competence compromised by emotional turmoil. Jake remained quiet but helpful, clearly shaken by the severity of the accident. Marcus, despite his obvious agony, seemed more concerned with calming Elena than addressing his own substantial discomfort. "Elena, breathe deeply," he kept repeating, reaching for her hand. "Broken bones heal. This situation is manageable, and we'll work through it together." His eyes met mine over Elena's head, and I understood we needed a plan. Someone had to maintain composure. I took Jake aside privately. "Take my phone and walk down to the point near the large boulder by the water. If you can establish even minimal signal strength, contact emergency services. Provide them with our exact location and situation details. If communication fails, return immediately." He nodded seriously and set off on his mission. Then I turned my attention back to Marcus, kneeling beside him. "What can I do to help manage your pain, Marcus?" I asked gently. He looked at me directly, really looked at me, with his usual guardedness completely absent. "The pain is quite severe," Rebecca, sharp and deep. "But please don't let Elena worry excessively. She becomes distressed when anyone suffers, and I hate seeing her upset." This concern for my sister while he was clearly in agony touched me profoundly. It wasn't mere obligation, it revealed deep affection and protective instincts laid bare by circumstances. "She loves you, Marcus. Of course she's worried." "We both are," I replied softly. We needed to stabilize his leg before attempting to move him. Drawing on half-remembered first aid knowledge, I located some straight pieces of wood from the damaged porch and tore strips from old linens Elena found in the cabin's storage area. As I worked carefully to immobilize his lower leg without causing additional pain. Marcus watched me intently. You have steady hands and a calm demeanor, he observed quietly. Natural caretaking instincts. Just trying to help however I can, I replied, concentrating on securing the makeshift splint properly. Usually I'm the one providing assistance. In family crises, he noted, with another of those brave small smiles. Role reversal feels strange but not unpleasant. The silence between us carried weight, but felt comfortable rather than awkward, filled with shared understanding of his pain. And our challenging situation, Jake returned, looking dejected. No signal anywhere, Aunt Rebecca, not even a flicker. My heart sank, but we couldn't wait indefinitely. We had to transport him to the truck ourselves and drive to medical help. Moving him would be excruciating for Marcus and physically demanding. For the rest of us, we constructed a makeshift stretcher using a canvas tarp and sturdy branches. Getting him positioned on it, then lifting and carrying him across uneven terrain to where the truck was parked, required all three of us working together. Marcus endured it with remarkable stoicism, though occasional sharp intakes of breath and jaw clenching betrayed his agony. Elena wept quietly, Jake strained with the physical demands, and I found myself naturally coordinating our efforts, giving quiet directions to keep movement as smooth as possible. Throughout the ordeal, whenever Marcus's eyes met mine, I saw gratitude and trust that felt incredibly meaningful. We weren't just in-laws managing a crisis, we'd become two people depending on each other in unprecedented ways. By the time we settled him as comfortably as possible in the truck's back seat, evening light was painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples that seemed to mock our desperate situation. The intimacy of the truck's interior, the shared trauma of the day, the raw emotion we'd all experienced, it had stripped away years of polite formality, leaving something genuine and unexpectedly profound. The drive to medical help felt interminable. Elena gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, her eyes darting anxiously between the winding mountain road and the rearview mirror to check on Marcus. Jake sat quietly beside her, staring ahead. I positioned myself in the back with Marcus, trying to stabilize his legs and provide whatever comfort I could. The truck bounced and jolted on the rough mountain track, each bump eliciting pain sounds from Marcus despite his efforts at composure. I felt an unusual combination of worry, responsibility, and unexpected closeness to him. Seeing him injured and dependent, yet still trying to minimize Elena's distress, completely transformed my understanding of who he really was. He wasn't simply stoic, he was deeply considerate. He wasn't just quiet, he internalized his pain rather than burden others with it. How are you managing? I asked softly. During a smoother section of road, he turned his head slightly on the pillow, finding my eyes in the fading light filtering through dusty windows. Painful, he admitted with a faint smile, but I'll recover, thanks to all of you. He paused, then added more seriously, especially you, Rebecca. Your composure and quick thinking probably prevented this from becoming much worse. I'm genuinely grateful. It wasn't elaborate praise, that wasn't his style, but it was sincere and heartfelt, and it affected me more than I expected. I felt warmth spreading through me, a connection forged in the crucible of the afternoon's events. As we finally reached the main road and civilization came into view, I realized something fundamental had shifted. The careful distance I'd maintained with Marcus for years had dissolved completely, replaced by genuine understanding and mutual respect born from shared crisis. Sometimes it takes extraordinary circumstances to reveal the extraordinary qualities in ordinary people, and sometimes the people we think we know best are the ones with the most surprises left to share.